In a reclined spinal twist, is your shoulder supposed to be on the ground? I got this great question from someone who was confused about this because she was hearing the cue in her reclined twist to ground her opposite shoulder, and she wasn't able to do that in her body. And she was wondering, am I doing it wrong? Is this bad for me? Things like that. So here is what we're talking about. Picture a reclined twist where, say, I take my legs over to the left, so now my knees are on the ground. And then this cue that we sometimes hear is to take the opposite shoulder, in this case of my right shoulder, to the ground. But as you can see in my body, my right shoulder is actually floating up off the ground here. And in many bodies, that shoulder is even higher, like something like this. So how is someone able to get their knees down and their shoulder down at the same time? And if they're not able to do that, is that bad? Are they doing the pose wrong? So I would first of all just suggest that our human bodies are definitely variable, and we all possess different ranges of motion when it comes to our joints. But in my experience, most people don't have the spinal rotation range of motion in order to have both their knees down and their shoulders down on the ground. And this is something you could even take a look at in your own body if you were to take a seat in a chair and have your thighs angled straight forward and then cross your arms in front of your chest and rotate, and just see how far you are able to go. How far can you turn your chest relative to your thighs in both directions? And it may be different on both sides. But in general, in my experience, most people don't have the full range of motion we would need in order to achieve what that cue is asking for in reclined twists. What you would need in order to have knees down and shoulder down is basically 90 degrees of spinal rotation. So that would mean if you were sitting in the chair, thighs are forward, your sternum should be able to turn a complete 90 so that your sternum is completely facing that side wall. You would need that, and you would need that in both directions in order to achieve shoulder down and knees down in a reclined twist. So you could just check that for yourself and see if that works out in your body. And if it does, then good. Then maybe you can have your knees down and your shoulders down. But for other people, if they come into the twist and they find themselves here with their shoulder up, and if they want to get the shoulder down, first of all, I would just suggest there's nothing wrong with being in a twist with the shoulder off the floor. Like, that's fine. You can experiment and move this arm around and see if that makes a difference. But it's fine to be in a twist with the shoulder floating. But if you did want to have that sensation of the shoulder grounded on the floor, then I would just suggest propping up the lower half of the body so that you bring it out of the twist a little more so that your shoulder can come down. And one way you can do that is with something like a blanket or a block, and you can place that prop either underneath both legs, or I personally sometimes like to put it in between my legs. So now I could come back into that twist shape. I've got a little elevation here, so I'm a little lifted, my top leg is at least in this variation, and that gives me the space to bring the shoulder down to the floor. So now I'm able to be in a twist and have my shoulder down and have my knees down, and I feel grounded, and I feel grounded. So adding elevation, this is one reason why yoga props are so great. Something underneath the leg side of the pose to lift you up so that you can bring your shoulder down. That can be great. One final point I'd like to make is, of course, there are never 100% rules. And I'm certainly not suggesting it's always wrong to cue shoulder down at all. We just want to I think we want to keep the bigger picture in perspective about individual bodies and ranges of motion and what we're actually looking for in poses. However, one place where I think keeping the shoulder down in a reclined twist, one place where I think that can actually be really helpful is in an active reclined twist variation here. So if here now I'm working my obliques, I'm doing some abdominal rotation. If I want to rotate and stay within control so that I can build strength, I might cue to keep this right shoulder down, because if I let it lift, then I might just go a little too far and kind of lose control in my range and just not get what I want out of the shape. So for something like this active twist where I'm lowering my lower half relative to my upper, it might be helpful to keep your shoulder down. But if we're talking about just a simple, relaxed, reclined twist, something like that, maybe we want to be a little more intentional about what we're cueing, what positions we're cueing, and why.